Hey friends, Tony here, Untethered Living, and coming to you with a real-time update. I'm currently back in the home base state of Minnesota. A few weeks ago, I was actually in Northern California among the redwoods, and let me tell you, it was magical. It was spectacular. It was incredible. It was amazing. It was all of those adjectives that describe something that just just takes your breath away. Literally takes your breath away. Yeah, that was phenomenal. I really enjoyed myself. That footage probably won't come out for a while. As you've been watching my channel, you probably know some of my stuff is, I guess actually a lot of my videos running behind. I'm trying to play catch up here constantly. I was thinking I was going to be able to get at least 2 videos out a week. I've been really trying to work on that the last several months, but it's just doesn't seem like it's going to be a reality. So I'm basically doing the best with what I have in terms of the way it works now. I work through the week. My job pretty much has some high time demand. So when I'm on the road, sometimes I'm in here for, 9, 10, sometimes 12 hours in the van. And then I get out and maybe get to explore the city or go for a hike or what have you. That's the nice part of my job, the autonomy to have the flexibility to work anywhere I can remotely right now because of COVID, or, and that's another thing too. I may be going back to my schedule pre-COVID, where I was actually working remotely for a week from home and then on the road for a week at times. So may make it a little bit more difficult for me to travel like I want to. It doesn't necessarily bar my travel, but it just makes things logistically a little bit different in terms of if I say, for instance, I'm on the East or West Coast and I have appointments that I have to go live to face-to-face in my home state of Minnesota. Typically, if they were flying me out of my state, they would pay for it. My company would pay for it. But because, if I were traveling outside of the state, if I had to fly back, I'd have to pay for my flight back to Minnesota, and then schedule something. If I had to fly from Minnesota to elsewhere, then the company would pay for that. But wouldn't necessarily bar it, like I say, but just make things a little bit more difficult in terms of logistics and making sure that I can get a reasonable flight if I need to come back to the home state. That wouldn't be cost prohibitive. So those are some things to consider, and this may not even happen till the summer. Who knows? It may not even happen till fall. Right now it's spring here in Minnesota. Today's about 30 degrees. When I got back in town, it was, actually it was a storm. So when I was heading back into town from the West Coast, I hit a tornado, just on the edge of a tornado in Des Moines, Iowa. And thankfully, I had a few stops that I made. I didn't want to make them, but thankfully I made those stops because it kept me on the edge of the tornado. It didn't touch down in Des Moines, but it was looking pretty rough. And I think it went a little further east and it touched down, and I think 4 people lost their lives, unfortunately. So I'm just grateful that I was in a space divinely that it didn't hit me, because when I got the notice on my phone, I don't think I've ever received a weather notice like that on my phone where it said seek shelter now. I was in the middle of a major interstate in the middle of cornfields, basically, with no exit in sight, kind of freaking out. When I did finally get to the exit, I was kind of laughing and kind of blown away that when I exited off the freeway, basically cars on the bridge, people standing outside their cars taking pictures of the sky. Yeah, that kind of freaked me. It kind of freaked me out, but it put me at ease. I'm like, okay, these people aren't concerned about losing their lives in a tornado. But I continued on across the bridge and got close to a gas station. I sat outside in my vehicle, kind of watched things pass by. I know that if I needed to run inside, it was only steps away to the gas station to get some shelter. But I made it through, made it back. As soon as I got back, even before I got back, that night the temperature plummeted in Iowa, at least 20 to 30 degrees because of the storm that came through. It was 70 degrees Fahrenheit when I came into town, And then as the storm passed over, the temperatures plummeted. And that, I think it ended up, when I woke up that morning, I got up at about 4 in the morning to start heading back to Minnesota. It was in the 20s in terms of degrees Fahrenheit. It was 26 or 27 degrees Fahrenheit when I was gassing up, and it was just drastic in terms of the temperature change. And I was cold, and it was like, welcome back to the north. So when I got back, and I was going to leave that night, of that storm, I was just going to push through, and I decided not to because Minnesota had a winter weather advisory. So we were getting hit with a different kind of storm. So I decided to just stay one night in Iowa. Couldn't find a hotel because the area where I stopped off at, there was some kind of hockey tournament, high school or something. So it was just the hotels were jam-packed. I ended up just staying in the hotel parking lot that night because I just really didn't want a chance going anywhere else. They had wind advisories for the night, so I just wanted to be close. If I need to run to a building, I could do that too. So I ended up staying overnight comfortably in a hotel parking lot. And then the next morning, like I say, I was up at 4 in the morning. I was off heading back home. And pretty much for the week, about a week and a half when I got back, it was, pretty much in the teens. And in terms of Fahrenheit, 16, 17 degrees. I think one day we had a dip down in the single digits, which was crazy. And then the week after that, we got into the 50s and the 60s, which was beautiful. And that was only a couple days of that. Now we've been back in the 30s or whatever. I can handle that. I just don't like that sub-zero temperature weather that we get here in Minnesota. I try to avoid that if possible. So being back, having snow, having the temperatures in the 30s, the high 20s and 30s and 40s, that's fine for me. So I'm back in town, and I think I'm kind of stationary for a little bit. My dad, and thank you folks. Some people, in the comments have asked how my dad is doing, and I really appreciate that. He's doing well. I told him he has some fans, people concerned about him. He's doing well. He has his good days and bad days. And lately, when he has bad days, they're a little bit badder or worse than his bad days maybe a year ago. Parkinson's is a progressional type disease where it just, by the nature of the disease, it only gets worse. So, he's been having some, when I got back, that week I got back, he had a few bad days, basically a bad week where, motor skills, which Parkinson's affects. He had some issues with mobility, balance, standing up, getting out of bed, things like that. And, a few days after I was back, maybe it was me, I don't know. I think he started to just bounce back. I'm like, Dad, you're looking like you got your strength back and you've got your mobility back. But he was like, yeah, it comes and goes. So, he's doing well as far as what he can do. Always has a great attitude, which helps me. If he was like, hurting and always down and in pain, that would certainly affect me and just have a deep impact on me. It already has a deep impact on me, but the fact that he has a good attitude and he's always forward looking in terms of his situation, or taking a positive note in terms of the situation as best he can, certainly helps me to keep a perspective too, and be there and help when I can. So, I think he's made the decision now where he really doesn't feel comfortable driving. So, when I can't get to the house and go grocery shopping for him or take him along, if he can go, he needs to get out. I tell him that. It's like, you need to get out of the house if you can. If you're feeling good, like you can walk, you're having, good mobility on a certain day, it's good to get out and get some fresh air. So the days when I can't get out and get groceries, I've been working with him and getting the food he needs through maybe Instacart or something like that, and having his food delivered to his place. So that's been the situation. I'm just kind of staying stationary for a few months here, just to kind of get a grip on what's going on with my dad, and if he needs more help. He gets some help in terms of cleaning, somebody coming to the house, and he has a couple of nurses that come twice a week to give medication and check on him and things like that. And then when I come over, I'm bringing either food or I'm just hanging out and we're just having dinner or lunch together. So that's the situation currently right now. My plan, and that's the thing too, plans have just been all over the board here lately. So I got to Northern California, and the weather was definitely cooler. It was winter time, of course. As I went up further up the coast, it got cooler and cooler. Certainly wasn't, Minnesota level cool. But my goal was to, at that time, go to Oregon and then up into Washington State. Now, people I've spoken with from both states say that it's probably best to go in the fall time. So I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to push through. I've got some things, to take care of on the home base. So I might as well just head home for a few months. If things work out in the fall, I think that's the best time for me to go back out west and then finish off my trip up the coast to the last two states I haven't been through yet, which are Oregon and Washington State. So I'm looking forward to that. One of my plans was to, a couple months from now, actually buy a new van. I've been looking at the Mercedes Sprinter van because I've pretty much outgrown this van on many levels. I certainly could do this for another year or two, but in terms of my work schedule and me being close to 6 feet high, being cramped up in here working for hours on end, it starts to wear on you, So for me to have a bigger van would definitely make it much more of a comfortable experience in terms of living the van life. So that's been something. And now I've backed off of those plans because with high gas prices, a war off in the Far East there, what have you, things are crazy. Still have issues with inventory being in port and not being able to get to, dealerships, parts that can't get to dealerships. So the prices are just basically going through the roof now. Dealers are charging way over what especially with used vehicles, they're charging way over what you would normally get in market time. So it's a different time right now. It's not a good time for me to buy a vehicle at this time. So I'm just going to stick with what I have. So it's probably a good thing that I'm stationary too, because as I was heading back, gas prices were starting to go up too. So it was getting kind of expensive to do the van life on the road, making those long extended trips. So I was kind of perturbed that I had to cut my trip short, but then I'm kind of relieved as I get back and I'm able to be close to my dad, and if he needs the help, I can just run over and take care of business and help him out with what he needs. And then also just gives me a chance to breathe. The last couple of weeks since I've been back, doing a lot of sleeping. I'm kind of freaked out by how much I'm sleeping. I take a nap sometimes for an hour in the day. I take my lunch break, I take an hour nap. And then, at nighttime, I'm getting tired at like 9:30, 10 o'clock, even with a nap in the day. And I'm sleeping all the way through the night, which is great. I'm happy about that. Sometimes like a month or so ago, I was having a problem sleeping. It probably has contributed to coffee I was drinking, and I've cut that down considerably. And I'm just like, how am I sleeping so much? Well, it's probably because of my schedule when I'm on the road. I'm working a lot and I'm trying to get some footage and filming. And then I'm up early so I can more than likely cut the day off early so I can go hiking or get more footage at night as well too. So now, since I've been stationary, I've I've actually cut back the filming that I was doing when on the road. And that's one thing. Another thing I have is this weekend, the video that I'm working on is going to be delayed until next Monday. For the simple fact that I took this weekend, I haven't had a weekend like I've had now in, I can't remember, in a long time. So what I did this weekend, of course, my mom had an event on Friday night. I went to that to support my mom. She does some acting.
Well, ain't nobody ever lifted me up in no carriage. I ain't had no best place and carried over mud puddle and when it pours. And am I not a woman?
And she also has a nonprofit where she works with children and educating them through the arts. So she's busy with that. And, I think about that, and I just watching her in her performance on Friday, I was just like, wow, my mom has got more energy than I have. And I don't want to say her age should kill me, but she is in retirement age and she's not slowing down whatsoever. So that kind of inspires me to, when I get to her age, hopefully I have the energy that she has and pursuing the passions that she pursues with that gust and that energy that she has within her. So I was really blessed and just happy to see my mom just operating in her gift and things like that. So after that, I went back and just relaxed and prepared for my weekend, which basically been nothing but just watching the tube, doing some binging on Netflix and YouTube, mostly YouTube. I'm an alternative media kind of guy. I will watch a movie here and there on Netflix or Hulu or, you know, a series on Apple TV. I finished last year, I finished Ted Lasso, which an awesome series. Got stuck on that. But lately it's been more so just kind of watching other van channels and other just random stuff on YouTube that I like to watch. So that's kind of been my weekend this weekend so far, and just sleeping in. Usually on the weekends, I spend probably more than likely 8 hours on a Saturday and 8 hours on a Sunday editing video, sometimes even more. So it's, you know, my schedule is typically work like a dog during the week, a sled dog, that is, not just a regular household dog that sleeps all day, but no, a sled dog, an Alaskan sled dog, working my butt off during the week. And then I'm just, at the end of the day, I'm typically just burnt out. I have no more energy to do any editing. Sometimes I can get some editing in, which helps to cut the time off during the week that I spend on editing a video. So a typical 10 to 15 minute video takes me about 3 days to edit and get through. And even then, I'm not comfortable with the product that I have, because there's so much more that I know I can do as I learn different procedures and techniques and editing and cutting and splicing together video. It's amazing how much you can do. And the more I do it, the more I realize, ooh, I would like more time to make even a more quality product. But like I say, I'm working with what I have right now. I did interview for a different job, which would have more than likely probably cut my hours a little bit, and it would have been a big cut in pay, which I was kind of willing to do just for the sake of pursuing my passions of getting videos out to you folks out there in YouTube land. But initially I had a recruiter actually reach out to me, and initially that person told me that this job was going to be remote. But then as we got into the interview, it was looking really good. And then I said, okay, you know, my question time came, and one of the big questions was, is it a remote job? And the guy was like, right now, but we're thinking in a few months, we're going to require everyone to go into the office. I'm like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. In the area where it's at, you know, most of my hub of activity, friends and family are in the Minneapolis central area, you know, right smack dab in the city, you know, a 3 to 5 mile radius. So and basically the areas I like to sleep in my van are in that area, in that radius too. But the area where the job would be that I interviewed for is in a suburban area about 30 minutes away from the hub of the city. And I've been in that area so many times. It's extremely suburban. I don't think there's anywhere for van life there. So it would be, you know, from the places I like to sleep in my van to the places that I would work, it would be a commute, just like going to a regular job every day, which I'm just not willing to do. Plus the fact that I wouldn't have the autonomy that I have now to travel. So even though I would be able to edit video more and get more product out to you folks, I definitely wouldn't be doing any more production in terms of making more videos. And I'd probably be really depressed because I'd have to go to an office, and I haven't had to do that in going on 3 years, going on 4 years now that I've been in a remote position, in a remote job. So that's definitely out of the question. I didn't want to move forward on that. So it's just, again, working with what I have to get good content out to you folks. And again, I'm working on my next video, which is me traveling from ending my Route 66 trips. Which is me traveling from the West Coast to the East Coast. And I experienced some interesting things on my travels from the West to the East. The most impactful thing and the most scary, hair-raising thing was hitting a huge storm in Austin, Texas. And you'll see a little bit of that in the next coming video here. And that's another thing too. And I've got so much in my mind right now. I can just ramble on, but I won't keep you too long. When I first started doing this, and I'm behind many months right now, but when I first started doing this, my first means of capturing footage was through an old phone that I had, and then I upgraded that phone, and then I ended up cracking that phone, and then I had an old knockoff of a GoPro, which would just like randomly start shooting when I didn't want it to shoot. I couldn't figure out how to configure it to stop that. So there were times where I was thinking I was catching some good footage, like when I was going through a snowstorm. It wasn't capturing at all. It looked like it was running, but it wasn't capturing anything at all. So that was very depressing. So I lost a lot of footage in the time of having that piece of equipment. So I got rid of that, and now I actually have a GoPro that I'm filming with right now as we speak. The quality is so much better. The time code even, or the date stamping, is better. That was one thing too. The date stamping on the other device, the knockoff of the GoPro, was off, and I would set that, but if I lost battery, everything would go away. It was just weird. So, the last few edits that I've had to try and figure out, okay, where was I at this time there, because the date code was so off, and I had so much footage on that camera. I had to like piece things together and figure out, oh, this goes with that, and match those together. Well, now the date code on this is perfect. I can match those up with my other phone, my camera phone, from my camera from my phone actually, to the GoPro, and have more succinct footage in terms of, okay, I filmed on the GoPro on the same day that I did with the phone camera, and I can match those together. So things are getting much better. Again, I'm learning much more in terms of techniques of filming and techniques of editing, and I'm hoping just with time to get better and better and better to produce a better product. But folks, I'm going to end it right here. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm inspired to continue this channel, no matter how hard it may be, and how much time it takes me in terms of, this is all I do. My dad always teases me. He's like, what you up to? And he's like, wait, no, work. I'm like, yeah. It's like I'm either working on my work or working on my passion, which is making YouTube content. So, even though it seems to be, strenuous at times, it's not really strenuous for me in terms of when I sit down and I actually have time to edit video or even go out and capture content. So I'm going to continue on. I'm encouraged. The channel, in terms of how I look at it and look at the people that I admire, it's really small, but I don't care. I'm having the time of my life doing this, and I'm going to continue on, whether it grows or not. I care, but I don't care, because I'm having fun. Anyway, folks, I love you guys, all of you, and stay peaceful, and I'll see you down the road.